All right. So I just finished reading The Slob by Aaron Beauregard, I believe is how you pronounce the last name. Now, I don't do book reviews. Obviously, this is the first time I've done one on this channel, but I just had to talk about this because, I mean, I don't even have a script or even notes really. It's all just fresh in my mind because I read this or finished reading this book like 3 hours ago, and for the past 3 hours, it's all I've been thinking about. Um, so this book is vile. It is disgusting. Very disturbing. I consistently see it on lists of most disturbing books, and that's kind of why I chose to read it in the first place. Um, Now I'm gonna give a quick plot synopsis, and then I'm gonna get into what I think about it because I have so many thoughts. Um, but basically, it's about this woman named Vera, who, when she was young, she grew up in this house that was just completely filthy, like a hoarder type house. You know, they didn't throw anything away. There was like trash everywhere. There's a lot of like cockroaches and rats and things like that. Um, and she thought this was normal until she realized that this isn't how her friends are living, and so she became this sort of like clean freak where, she was just like fervently, like feverishly almost cleaning her house. She was putting in more effort to take care of the house than her parents were or anyone else was. Um, and she sort of has this trauma around like filth, particularly because of this incident where her sister Lisa took her own life. She shot herself, and sometime after the funeral, um, Vera had to like go into Lisa's room and clean up all of like the blood and brain matter that was everywhere. Um, and so at some point, in the future, after this whole incident, when she grows up, she um, gets married to a guy named Daniel, um, and they want to have a child. And when Vera is pregnant, she gets this job as a door-to-door saleswoman selling a steam cleaning vacuum. Um, and she does an amazing job at it. Every pitch she does is just a hit, gets sales really easily, really good money from it. And, um, but she's obviously heavily pregnant, or getting more and more heavily pregnant. And so, her husband tells her, like, okay, you have like one more week that you can keep working. And on the last day of this last week, um, she stumbles upon this house that's just in complete disrepair. There's bars on the windows, even though it's in the middle of nowhere. Um, it's just like, it's not in a good state at all. Um, and, when she approaches the door, the guy who greets her is this really huge, like morbidly obese man who has just really bad hygiene all around. His clothes are filthy, horrible like body odor, really long but thinning hair that's like caked in dirt, so much that it sort of adheres to it, like sticks to itself, like rotting, crooked teeth. Just, and his house is just like him too, filth everywhere. Um, you could really tell that this guy just has completely lost control of his life, if he ever had control of it in the first place. He's living in a state that no one should ever have to live in. And she feels kind of bad for the guy because of it, and she thinks like, maybe he might have some sort of like mental disability or something like that that makes it difficult for him to take care of himself. So this guy, we never get a name for him, so he's only ever referred to as the Slob. So the Slob takes her up to this bedroom, and locks her in because the door locks from the outside. And he makes her clean this rug on the other side of the bed. And this rug is covered in blood and human body parts from a woman who had been horribly mutilated. And she's forced to clean it up while he, goes and does something else. And when he comes back, he has this plate of what is assumed to be human flesh, and he wants her to eat it. She doesn't, and eventually he begins to later on torture and sexually assault her in all kinds of ways, just all sorts of different forms of torture, including forcefully terminating her pregnancy without her consent, of course. And at some point, there's another woman who's brought in by him. There's like a bag over her head. And this woman's name was Sandra, I think. Now, Sandra seems to be able to speak perfectly fine despite having her lips removed, which is okay. But like, it's clear that he had been torturing her too, and they make this plot to escape, because she had swallowed this key to his to the Slob's gun cabinet and had to fish it out of her own excrement, essentially. But they're able to sneak out. Well, she isn't. She gets dragged away to be raped by the Slob, while Vera sneaks out to get the gun, a shotgun from the gun cabinet, and tries to shoot the Slob, but it goes wrong, and she ends up shooting Sandra, and the Slob is mostly fine. He has his eye punctured, but didn't seem to bother him too much. And so, as punishment for this whole ordeal, Vera is taken to this barn where usually his victims are killed there. And she's chained in to this cage that's full of bodies. And there's vats of boiling water, and there's this meat grinder thing there, and cans, and it's clear that what he's doing here is he's grinding up his victims and canning their meat. And so she's chained in here, and he regularly comes back in there and visits her to assault her pretty much daily for I think the book said it was for a couple weeks, until she comes up with a plan. Now this is where my attitude towards this book changed a little bit. I'm going to talk about it in a second, but throughout the entire book up until this point, my main feeling was disgust, which was sort of the point. This book is written to be disgusting. It's considered splatterpunk, extreme horror, gore. A lot of people refer to it as torture porn, which I think is pretty accurate. So yeah, my main feeling towards it was disgust. But that changes in the the last quarter of the book towards the ending. I mean, there's still definitely disgust there, but it's for me replaced with just this sense of confusion. Why? It's a little bit ridiculous, maybe more than a little bit. So on one of the corpses she finds a Walkman, that and it is a mixtape that the victim's lover made for her, and it's got New Kids on the Block and Beat It by Michael Jackson, and this music motivates her to in this plan to beat up and get shards of bones and teeth from the corpses, to help carry out this plan that she has. But I find it a little funny that it's it's talking about how the music is motivation for her. It's almost it's so strange in this scenario. It feels so out of place. It's almost like an Undertale save point message, the sound of Michael Jackson fills you with determination. Her plan is that she puts a jagged broken piece of forearm bone inside of herself, so that the next time the Slob tries to assault her, he'll get his banana peeled, if you know what I mean. And it works. So the Slob is like reeling in pain on the ground after getting his sausage sliced up. Which, let me take a moment to say, this plan would never work in real life, obviously. Like, and obviously this book isn't real life, so it's got nothing to do with anything. But just thinking about it, like, the fact that she came up with this plan and that it worked is just like some 10,000 IQ galaxy brain shit. She gets a key while Slob is reeling on the ground, and it unlocks like the shackle that has her chained to the cage. And so there's like this scuffle between her and the Slob when he gets back up, and it results in him being pushed into that meat grinder thing, and she turns it on and grinds him to bits. But right before she turns it on, she delivers a one-liner where she says to him, "You are what you eat," which was an interesting choice by the author. But anyways, she like basically crawls into like the Slob's truck, steals it, and drives home. If you can believe it, it gets even more ridiculous. So we find out that the reason why the Slob was doing this, or part of the reason at least why he was turning these women into mincemeat and why those cans were there, is because there is a group of, like, I would assume wealthy gay men who like, they want to get rid of women, and they also think that eating women will let them absorb their femininity to like make presumably like make other men more attracted to them. And so the Slob is like the meat dealer for this underground evil gay cannibal cult, which is stupid. I mean, it's stupid. There's this review of the book on Goodreads that says it has like a childishly homophobic premise, which I read that review when I was only like a quarter of the way into the book, and so I didn't understand it, and I was like, homophobic? I could understand how the book could be construed as ableist. I mean, I would say it is a little bit, at least, with the whole, like, the Slob being possibly mentally disabled thing. Definitely not a good look. But homophobic, I thought, like, what? I don't see anything homophobic in this book. And then I got to the ending and I'm like, oh, I see what they mean. Because it is, like, it kind of is, but it's also really funny. I mean, I don't tolerate bigotry of any kind, but like the fact that this author wrote like this, most disgusting book ever, and for some reason felt the need to like insert this weird pseudo globo homo conspiracy theory shit into the end of the book that kind of recontextualizes the whole thing in a really weird way. It's bizarre to me. And it's the main reason why I can't stop thinking about this book. Like, honestly, I would just chalk this book up to like, oh, it's just like gore, it's like gore porn, torture porn, it's just disgusting shit, and I'd move on with my day. I wouldn't consider it all that remarkable, but it's the ending. It's the ending that makes it remarkable for me. Not all like the horrible descriptions of torture. It's that bizarre ending. Honestly, I have no clue what the author was thinking. For anyone who's read Blood Meridian, I'm not going to spoil the ending for any of you who haven't, but like those of you who have read it, you probably agree that for however dark it is and however vague it is, it's very narratively and thematically fitting for the rest of the book. It is almost the perfect narrative and thematic conclusion to the book. But the ending of the Slob almost feels like the opposite. It feels so like shoehorned in and just bizarre. And like it makes me question, like, what was the point? Like, was the point of the book to spread a homophobic message the whole time? Like that, I don't want to assume it was. While I don't want to assume that the author is homophobic, I really can't think of any other reason why he would put that ending in the book. I mean, it's either the author is homophobic or it's just for shits and giggles. which I feel like a lot of this book could be. Like, I understand that a lot of people have really dark senses of humor, and so I think there's a really big possibility that not only was the ending of this book written for this purpose, but possibly the whole book was written because the author just thought it was funny, which, I mean, I'm not going to judge you if you have a fucked up sense of humor, but, like, this is a little far. More than a little. There's this book called Cows by Matthew Stokoe. I don't remember last name either. I'm bad at last names. But it's really bad. I don't like it. I do not like it at all. I wouldn't say I hate it. Hate is a bit of a strong word, but I do not. I have really nothing good to say about that book. But from the people I've heard who do have good things to say about it, I forget whose video this was. I might link it in the description because I believe she talks about the slob in that video. But I saw a video from this YouTuber of, like, most disturbing books that she had read. But she mentioned Cows, and what she said about it, she said that it's a very, like, disturbing and uncomfortable and difficult read, but it has a lot to say, which I have my own gripes with that. I can see the perspective that it has a lot to say, but personally I just don't like the way Cows is written, and I feel like some things just are taken too far and that they drag on a little too long. But I would overall agree with the sentiment, I guess, but you can't say that about the Slob. Like, the Slob is definitely an uncomfortable and difficult and, quite frankly, nauseating read, but I feel like it doesn't have anything to say. Like, I mean, that might be a little mean, but, like, I'm not sure it has anything to say. Like I said, there could be some weird homophobic message behind it. I don't want to believe that. I want to be a bit more generous. Like, I don't just want to assume that. But, it's hard to really pin down, I think, what this book is trying to say, if anything. But I know what it says to me. What it says to me is that there is, in the world of literature and in the world of publishing, there is a market for everything. If there's a market for this, there's a market for everything. And, considering that there's like 8 billion people in the world, statistically, The Slob has to be someone's favorite book. And you know what? If The Slob is your favorite book, good for you. I mean, it's cool that people can enjoy different types of media. And I think if something like this can be published and can gain a sort of a following, because I know there are a lot of people who do really like this book, I think that's great, for all types of mediums. I think that says something good about art in general, that if you are a creator of any kind of art, or, if you put anything out into the world, be it like, paintings, drawings, books, movies, games, YouTube videos, live streams, whatever, music, whatever you put out into the world, if there are eyes on it, if there's even just a few eyes on it, someone out there likes what you're doing. Someone out there enjoys what you're putting out. And that's great. That's great for everyone. I, myself, am very glad that there are people who enjoy these videos. Now, maybe not these videos, because this is the first time I've really made a video that's like this, but I'm glad there are people who enjoy my content. I'm very glad for that. Just as I'm glad that there are people who enjoy the Slob, because, as however many issues I see with it, I think the author, he definitely tried. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't know if he poured his heart and soul into it, but, I mean, making art in general is a labor of love. And so I'm glad that there are people who enjoy what this author put out. Okay, now, about me personally and, like, my, personal thoughts on this book, my personal opinion, is it good? Not really. Did I enjoy it? No, uh, I wouldn't say I enjoyed it. It was I mean I liked it, I guess. I but I wouldn't say I enjoyed it because I don't really enjoy feeling disgusted. I don't think anyone does. Um, but it's like a car crash. You know, you can't look away. It's actually a really hard book to put down. I read it in one sitting. Um, if you know, I think that's worth something. That's rare for me, and I know the book is short, but still, kudos to the author for being able to write something that I can read in one sitting. Um, in conclusion, I am glad that there are people who are able to enjoy this book. I'm glad that there are people who are able to enjoy all sorts of art, and I'm especially very grateful that there are people who enjoy my content. Um, so yeah, uh, I love you all. Okay, that's not true. I'm actually incapable of loving all of my viewers and subscribers because I don't know most of them. Um, but in a very platonic and maybe slightly parasocial way, um, I love all. Okay, that's not really true either. I love the fact that you guys watch my content. It makes me feel appreciated. Um, Thanks. Bye.